So thank you very much for inviting us. We're delighted to be here, even though it's the middle of the night. So my apology is if I sound tired. I have been awake for a long time already. I will give you a short introduction to our university, and I will take you along our adaptations when it comes to evaluations during the COVID period. So Ghent University is the second largest university in Belgium. We have 45,000 students and 9,000 staff members. So the student to staff ratio heavily influences how our education system is structured and how examinations are organized. We have 11 faculties, but we have a very decentralized structure. So these faculties are very autonomous and can change, or the way they organize their education is fully in their control. Our classroom sizes varies by educational programs very much. I've been in classes of 6 people, and I've been one of the 800 people in a course. So this also very much influences our examinations. We're quite proud to be relatively high in global rankings, but of course, as many universities, of all universities, this also means the pressure is on and expectations are quite high. We're also very proud that our level of participation from student representatives is also quite high. We are allowed to partake in like university-wide policy, but also courses itself, educational programs itself. We are quite involved. Although we're quite proud of our global rankings, we do have a lot of possibilities to improve our digital efficiency, which isn't all too great. Recording classes wasn't really a thing until March. We just had a new online learning platform, which we're trying to learn, and online or remote exams were not a thing at all. So our evaluation system, as many universities, have a combination of methods, heavily dependent on the educational program. In general, our bachelors have mostly exams on campus at the end of the semester, and some courses have also evaluations during the semester with or without a final exams. In our master courses, we have smaller groups. Most of the time, it's also an exam on campus, but oral exams can be done, and also more assignments during the semester with or without a final exam at the end of the semester. And again, little to none online examinations. To this day, we don't have working proctoring software, and we don't have a very stable examination software, for example, multiple choice exams. Now for the adaptation in March, we had 2-week periods in which professors were asked by the university to redesign the course, to adapt it to online learning. For the bachelors, if possible, they could present another evaluation method, but most of the time physical exams on campus were held. Obviously, this had to be done with social distancing, so we had to rent large halls in our city, which took great effort and was very, very expensive, but it was perceived quite well. For masters, professors were asked to give as little exams as possible and try to find other ways to evaluate during the semester, online oral examinations via Teams. Now, this was completely in control of the professor or the one responsible for the course. There was some kind of control panel, but because this had to be done in 2 weeks, it wasn't really an efficient control panel. So the adaptation or redesign was completely dependent on the capacities of the professor. So some professors did a really good job at making online lectures and having adequate evaluation methods during the semester or other type of exams. There were also professors who did absolutely nothing. Luckily, it's only a small percentage, but there were some, sadly. It didn't go everywhere smoothly, and the university also acknowledged that and had some measures taken. So we had 3 large measures. The first thing is our infamous Corona check, which is actually a correction, it's a formula, it's a mathematical formula. I'm a poli-sci major, so I cannot explain you the formula at all. I don't understand it. But what it does, we compared the results of the exams in June also in August and September. And we compared these results, the scores of the students, to the results of the past 2 years. If there was a significant lower score, the formula could be used and a small correction could be made. There were obviously some statistical and educational conditions, but the thing is, it's a first-time thing. We never had something like this before. It was the formula was made and it was applied in around 4 weeks. So the policy surrounding this corona check, it wasn't really on point yet. So we don't know the results yet, what this has done to the scores, because obviously the exams from August and September are still being scored. I cannot tell you anything more. We are also very, very curious what this has done to the score distributions. Now, the second thing was fraud countermeasures. As I said before, proctoring software isn't a thing yet, but the small amount of online exams that were done, measures like not being able to return to the previous question, limited amount of time for a question, limited amount of time for your exam. It was again in control of the professor. So some had very strict fraud countermeasures. Anyway, these measures were experienced quite negatively by the students. The third thing our university did was a universal call for mildness. Now, again, this was fully in control of the professor. Some were flexible with deadlines, others were not. Some had their exams shortened or types of questions, some did absolutely nothing. In August, we had a huge survey. It had over 4,000 responses. Now, we only closed it yesterday. There were a lot of questions with open answers, so we haven't been able to review those because it's a lot of work, but we can tell you like a first insight. Now, this was a question about the different evaluation methods. So most of them were on campus, physical distance, large halls, and they were perceived very well. We were also used to this type of examination, and like the university went to great lengths to organize on-campus exams. There was a notable shift then to evaluations during the semester, so all type of assignments, especially for master courses, which was perceived quite well, but as you can see in the graph, it was definitely not as good as the physical exams. And then lastly, there were also exams online at home, which also were perceived okay, but it could definitely be better. So this is the experience of the different evaluation methods. So we can see the physical exams were perceived very well. The other, there is a lot more red, which I don't like. Now for the internship, a lot of internships couldn't go through. So a lot of internships were replaced with some type of assignment. 26% is a lot, which find the replacement assignment not adequate. Obviously, there was a lot of students knew it isn't easy to just provide an assignment as a replacement of a 4-6 week internship. It is definitely a working point for next academic year. Maybe as a side note, as other speakers also have mentioned, problems with Wi-Fi computers. It was the same here. We did a short survey in April, I think, where we asked students if they had Wi-Fi of computer available or a room to study in. The results were alarming. The university did try to take measures and provide computers and provide some quiet spaces, but they were obviously very limited and maybe came also a little too late. We also asked the students about how they scored. So for the exams in June, which we feared the worst, but it came out quite well. So we're happy about that, but still we are waiting on the results for the latest examination period. What is alarming is the study attitude of our students, which is way worse compared to pre-COVID. We brainstormed a little bit about the sustainability of the adaptations. As I said, it heavily dependent on the course and the professor, which isn't great, obviously, because we don't know, and they don't know if their adaptation will be able to use next semester. Now, our general university-wide policy wasn't ready for online or distant learning at all. It's still being developed. There were a lot of gaps in our policy. regarding privacy, regarding online examinations. So a lot of our examination and education code had to be changed. Obviously, this has to go through advisory boards, board of governance. So this was all rushed through, and there were a lot of meetings to get this done. But there is still a lot of work. So at this point, I wouldn't say the adaptations being made are as sustainable as they could be. As I said, it depends on the professor. So we really need an effective quality control tool. At this point, we are in the process of developing a stronger quality control tool. This is set to launch this year, but we noticed that the student representatives on the educational program is very vital. Without them, we don't know what's happening because there is little peer-to-peer quality control between professors. So we really need their feedback and their evaluations. As I said, our digital efficiency isn't great. So even now, the course evaluations couldn't go through because our digital system didn't allow us to do them. So we really have to rely now on students who give feedback themselves. We have to ask for feedback. At the end of June and the middle of July, our educational staff was really overworked and was screaming for a day off because they had been working nonstop to program and reorganize everything. Maybe a little bit more, the next academic year, which starts the 21st of September, will be a blended academic year. So there will be courses online, there will be courses on campus, depending on the capacities of professors and the amount of room we have on our campuses to allow on-campus lessons and examination. So we are working really hard to get proctoring software, to get stable software to do like multiple choice exams online. So we're hoping that everything will be ready by November to also enable more online exams without any issues, which we definitely had. There isn't much positive about this COVID pandemic, but the crisis did allow us to ask some very fundamental questions like our lesson durations. These are 1 hour and a half. While there is a redesign of courses, we can maybe ask if a 50-minute lesson wouldn't be a much better choice regarding concentration. The student council is working hard to come up with ideas, but it's definitely a work in progress. As I said, the large survey has just been closed, so we are planning on writing a large report and see what our students think. Also ask some questions about ideas for next year. We are very interested in what our students had to say, but we do want to do some more research, especially on the education program level, to see where the problems were during the examinations and how to combat these problems. Obviously, our student to staff ratio is a problem. We are a public university. We don't have a lot of funds. That is also why our digital efficiency is kind of lacking. It is something we have to deal with, sadly. But we, as a student council, we do want to focus on feedback culture. Feedback culture isn't really a thing yet. So if you are writing a paper during the semester, asking for feedback during the semester isn't really a thing, which is sad, of course. We do also want to work on the workload and finding a balance, because we have noticed in our survey answers that students really feel like they have way too much work. They perceive their workload much higher than pre-COVID. We also want to think about how our examinations could take a more prominent place in this learning cycle. Of course, an examination is also an opportunity to learn, but at this point, with a lot of multiple choice exam, or you're one of 900 people, it doesn't feel like it. As an ending note, I would like to talk about the students' mental well-being. Last year, we did also a really large survey, and we had some really alarming results. Sadly, our university hasn't been able to take specific measures to combat this poor state. That isn't because our university doesn't care about the students. It is just really complex, and they don't really know how to, with the little funds we have, look for specific measures that could help a lot of students. Because obviously with 45K students, there is a lot of diversity and a lot of people with different needs. Now, we asked some questions about mental well-being in our last survey in August. And again, there were very alarming results. The pressure expectations is too high. And as I wrote, in circumstances that don't allow us to be as productive, to be as creative. So it is really a challenge to find balance in assignments, what is expected, and still keep our high profile as a university, which is something we really have to work on as a student council, to come up with ideas, to talk more with our students, also as a university. So we had some questions about motivation and concentration. There was a lot of orange, which doesn't mean anything good, and the workload was perceived much, much higher. I think there was little to no green, sadly. I have some more questions about sleep, I think. Stress and sleep just indicates more stress and a very bad sleeping rhythm or pattern. These are things we have to work on. If a student isn't in a great mental state, obviously we are not able to do anything good on our examination. So that is something that is a bigger issue pre-COVID as well, that needs to be handled like right now. So this was the presentation I had prepared. We have a lot of work to do as a university, as a student council, because the step to, or adaptation to online and digital education was a very large one. I always compare our university to a very large tanker that is very, very difficult to move, while right now we need to be like a drone that moves quick. We are quite excited as a student council to help our students and our university. That was it. Thank you very much. Any questions?